Hi everyone, welcome to this video. Now in this video, we're going to be going over exactly how to set up marketplace payments on our platform. So that means that if we have a buyer and we have a seller selling products on our platform, if a buyer makes a purchase from a seller's store, so purchasing a product offered by a seller, we as the app owner take a commission off that sale, but the payment is directed directly from the buyer to the seller. And there are three things that we really need to do to set this up. The first thing is we need to make some changes in our Stripe dashboard. So grabbing out the client ID, but also adding in a redirect URI. The second thing we need to do is we need to provide sellers with the ability to register. And what this involves is basically the seller provides their details to Stripe so that they know exactly where to provide a payout or provide that payment to. And then the third and final thing that we need to do is we need to make changes to our transaction flow, so our actual purchase flow. And the reason is instead of, as we set it up before, us receiving the payment for any purchases made on the platform, we want to set it up so that the payment goes directly from the buyer to the seller minus our commission. Alrighty, so let's jump into the editor and get started with setting this one up. Alrighty, so the first step that we need to do is we need to grab out our client ID and also add in a redirect URI. So the way that we're going to do that is we're sitting here on our Stripe dashboard and I'm going to click on the settings here. I'm then going to click on connect settings over here, and when I scroll down I can see my test mode client ID. Just like before, you can toggle on this one to see a live mode client ID. If I jump back to here, go to my plugins, I'll add in this client ID. The next thing I also need to do is I need to provide a redirect URI, and the way that I get this is I actually go to the Stripe plugin docs on Bubble's documentation itself. So you can just Google Bubble documentation Stripe plugin. And if I scroll down to this section here, register the user as a seller, it tells us you need to set the redirection URI in Stripe and it has to be this value here. So what I will do is I will copy this one. I'll jump back to here and I will add this one in. So now we have this set up. The next step is to register the user as the seller. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to have sellers on our platform connect to Stripe and just add their details so that they can actually receive payments. So the way that we actually do this, if we jump back to our application, is I'm actually sitting on our account page over here. And what we have here is we have a tab section, which is seller information, and it gives the ability for a user to register as a seller. And what we want to do is we want to add a workflow here. And the workflow we want to add is register the user as a seller, like so. And then we want to add a condition. So I wanted to say, when current user Stripe seller account is not empty, then I want this text to say update your information. So in that case, they would have already created a seller account and we want them to update their information. So let's see how this just looks like. So if I click register as a seller, all right, so we get an error, and what I have noticed here is you can see on the client ID that there's a space there, and if I jump back over to my plugins, something that I have noticed when I copy from Stripe is sometimes it just adds a space like so. So if we jump back to here and we try again, what we can now see is that we've been directed to the Stripe seller account setup. So I'll just make some fake details and quickly set this up. Alrighty, so I've now set it up and I'm getting redirected back to my Bubble page, and I can now see that it comes up with update your information and it says that I've registered as a seller. Now that's a little bit of bad UX. So what we can actually just do quickly to make a change is if I click on this little on here, I can see what it looks like when this condition is applied. And when this condition is applied, this button is actually a little bit too small. So what I want to do is I want to increase that to 230. So the reason why I'm doing that is just so that it's all on one line and a lot cleaner. The final step now is we actually need to modify our payment flow so that we send the payment to another person, so a seller on our platform, rather than us as the app owner collecting the payment. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to jump over to our product page, and what I actually want to do is I want to refactor or change the way that we actually go through our checkout flow process. So instead of having or utilizing that widget, what I actually want to do is I want to directly go from the product page where we would usually click add to cart. Now we will actually click a button which says buy now, and this button will actually bring up a checkout pop-up, and then users can click buy now on that pop-up to complete the transaction. Now, the reason why we're actually doing this is because the way that we have it set up right now is you can add multiple products or multiple line items to your order. This works really great, but the problem with this setup is if you have product A being a scooter and product B being a bike, you may have an issue in terms of having two different sellers. So you need one payment to go to seller A, who delivers the scooter, and another payment going to seller B, who's actually delivering a different product, being our bike. Now, we can get around this in one workflow. So what we need to do is we need to set up a little bit more of a recursive workflow and run through a series of charges. But for the simplicity and sake of just showing you exactly how to set up marketplace payments, we're not going to go down that route. Instead, we're going to use this pop-up option so that you can only purchase from one seller at a time. Alrighty, so we're going to add workflows now. So when the button buy now is clicked, we want to create a new thing, being an order. And just jumping over to our data tab, because we don't have to add items from multiple sellers or from multiple products, we're not going to have line items. So we have the product and quantity just saved on the order itself. And what I will do is I'll add all fields, delete the Stripe ID because we don't need that just yet. Set the status to incomplete, the product to be current page is product, the quantity to be input item quantity, the total price to be current page products price multiplied by quantity, and then the unit price to be current page products price. And then we want to display data in a group or pop-up, being pop-up checkout. We want to add the order we just created. The next thing I want to do is I want to show the element of pop-up checkout. So if we jump over to here, we can see our pop-up, and then we have all the information here. I can then click buy now. And then now what we want to do is we want to charge the user using a saved credit card, being the current user. The amount is going to be parent group orders total price. We'll just add a dummy description here. The card ID to charge is going to be the current user's Stripe credit card ID. And then we want to check this box. This is important. The payee of this transaction is another user. Essentially what we're saying is that another user is going to be receiving most of the money for this because it's a marketplace. So that's actually going to be parent group orders, product, creator. So that's the other user who is selling this product who's actually going to receive money. But what we want to do is we want to take an app fee. So what we're going to take is it's going to be parent group orders total price multiplied by app fee, which is going to be 10%. Now we could write 0.1 here, but what is actually better practice to do is we go to our data tab, we go to app variables, and what we actually want to add is an app fee here. And I will set that to a number, and then I'll go back to my workflow, and here I'll go do a search for app variables, first item, app fee. And then I'll jump over to my database, go to my app variables, and I'll add in an app fee of 0.1. And the reason why I'm doing it this way in my database is that it's just a little bit more scalable. If I ever want to change my app fee in the future, I can just jump into my database and really easily change it, or I can add a section in my admin portal where I can update the app fee really easily. If I don't do it this way, then I actually need to jump into my actual editor and start making manual edits and then deploy all the changes in live. So this just gives me a little bit more flexibility. What I would also like to do is I'd actually like to round this answer to 2 decimal places. The reason why is if we don't round to 2 decimal places and just say we have 3 decimal places, it will actually create an error. So it is important for us to make sure that we round it. What we also need to do now is we need to make changes to a thing, being the order that we have just done. And we want to set the status to complete on this order. And then we want to set the Stripe ID to be this one. And then I want to finally hide an element, being my pop-up checkout. Alrighty, so now we've set up our application to accept marketplace payments.